Hey everybody, I'm Katie Arroyo.
And I'm Laura Manaswich.
And this is Pinky Promise, a podcast about growing up. And we have a very special guest this week. We have comedian and host of the J-Train podcast, Jared Freid. Hey, Jared.
How's it going? Thank you so much for having me on.
Good.
Excited to have you here.
I did Jared's podcast, and he does live intros of every person that comes on the podcast, and his intro, and it was a song, must have been like a minimum of like 2.5 minutes, and it was all improvised, and it was like the most incredible improvised song I have ever heard in my entire life. With like symphony music, and I was just sitting there like with the same face that you have when somebody sings happy birthday to you and you don't know what to do, and you're just like, this is amazing. I don't know how I cannot join in. I can't contribute to this in any way.
I kind of had, it's progressed over the years. I used to do, I would do a long hello, and I would try and go as long as I could.
Yeah.
I would do like, hello, and I would try. We had a whole thing where it was March to a minute, where I was trying to get to a minute long on the hello. And there were people that were like, I fucking hate it. Like, they were just like, I am not into that hello. And then like some people loved it. And just because to me, like when I started doing podcasts, all the podcasts existed. They were like, you know, it was like someone sipping a coffee, like, hello and welcome. Let's talk about your comedy life. And it was like, that already was being done, and I'm not that way. Like, I want a party. So I was like, so over the years, we've added sound effects, and sometimes some episodes we don't have the sound effects and the music, but yours, you got lucky. It was a sound effects episode, and we play this music coming into the podcast, and I would just start singing with it because it was just fun to do. Because the beauty of a podcast is you get to create any show you want. You can, and that's when you find out that a lot of comedians aren't very creative. There's
definitely some people that are just better suited to set up punch on a stage, and that is it. And there's like nothing else.
Well, maybe they shouldn't even be doing that.
Well,
I mean, the idea that the idea that you have this blank canvas where you can do any show you'd like, and everyone's like, yeah, we'll just talk about comedy and how you started. You're like, what? This is any show you wanted to do? You can be as weird and fun as you want to be. And like, you know, for me, I love doing stand-up. I think podcasting has like helped my stand-up because it just shows me like, oh, there are people that like kind of like the weird, quirky things. And like now, like when I, you know, recently, since the pandemic, the Comedy Cellar has reopened, and there's a band up there. I've been singing with the band. Like I've been like, because of all the singing that I've been doing at the front of the podcast. Like, and I try to improvise it, and sometimes it's horrible, and I can't think of a word. Sometimes it works out. I'm like pretty impressed by myself. I'm like, holy shit! They were like they were the worst crowd ever. I remember, and I went and was like, doing songs about why each couple in the front sucked, and I was like, well, I walked off, and like I remember there were all these comics standing there, like, what the fuck was that? I was like, you didn't see that? Was fucking magic.
It was amazing.
And it was like my wax on, wax off moment from all the podcast singing I've been doing. Like that was actually practice, you know?
I think it's great. I think also too for people, like you said, as far as organizing things, we definitely. This podcast started because stand-up was slowing down it was dead for that like 3 weeks, and then we were just in a group chat of talking about old shit, and a friend that was in it with us was like, you guys should make that a podcast because so many people have like fucked up shit about their childhood that is either hilarious, sad, or, you know, just relatable in general. And we said, yeah, you know what? Actually, instead of just another podcast that's just, we're two wacky gals, we were like, let's have something to talk about that keeps it focused.
And even from there, like from the start, it's changed a lot from what we first thought it was or imagined it to be, to like getting to talk to people, getting to talk about things that aren't comedically related, and sometimes are very much the opposite, and still finding like connection with people. And I don't know. It's a comedy podcast, but we sneak in some like self-help shit, you know?
Well, that's the whole point is like you started something, the idea, you're like, I see things at work. I see things that I'm interested in. Right. Like, if anything, it's like the most honest version of a show because you're only doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you're not hearing a laugh about like the joke that you don't even like, you know, the joke you like, you're like, I can't believe I keep doing this, but it works.
Yeah.
So it'll get me to the thing I want to do. So you do it over and over. And it's like, that doesn't even exist in podcasting. In podcasting, it's like, I don't know. Like you hear from people like, oh, that was awesome. Or it's the sound sucks. You know, it's like it's one of those two things.
Right.
You're like, no, this is the bit that I love. The long hello is what I love. It is funny.
Yeah, I get accused of I'm a screamer. That's the one thing that I can't. It's tough for me because I think it's because I can't hear. Sometimes when I wear these headphones, like it's like it doesn't help me use my voice correctly. But you know, this is a work in progress. We're figuring it out.
I'll be honest. I have two things. I have the same problem where when I wear the headphones, I feel like I should be hearing the person so much louder. So I feel like they must not hear me or something. So I will catch myself being like, oh my God, that's crazy. And then the second thing is I did a show with you in Worcester, and I have been told that I can be a bit of a screamer on stage. And I went home and I was like talking to another comic friend, and I'm like, Jared Freid brings the energy. I was like, it made me be like, yeah, you can turn it up. You'll be okay.
I'm there to party. I never understood the negativity associated with someone that's loud and fun and whatever. I'm always about that. If I left the house, I want to be entertained, you know, so I try to do that. I mean, of course, that's within reason. You try to be better at it. You try to use, you know, the surroundings, but I definitely don't think of it as like a bad thing.
Yeah, it's just so funny. I was like, no, he's a yeller. I was like, he made me feel quiet, which was good because I'm like, pull it back. And I was like, nah, turn it up.
Turn it up. That's why we went out, to turn it up.
Exactly.
I just like a lot of lunging and pointing, personally. I get real wiggly on stage. It's just fun. I like it.
Love a wiggle. So we were kind of fluctuating between topics, and AKA just didn't have one. Every male guest we've ever had, Jared doesn't know what they want to talk about, and they always leave with the most exquisite, detailed story from their childhood that we were like, you've been hiding that.
Here's what I would say. My childhood was very good. I'm literally coming to you live from my parents' house in Boca, like from the pool house that I've been living in kind of off and on since the pandemic started. So like, it's, you know, and it's something that like from comics, I know comedians all want to have their origin story. They all want to say I came from nothing because that's an easier place to do comedy from. Yeah. Oh, it's a little bit harder to be like, yeah, my childhood was a lot like most people's, and mine was fun, and I love my parents, I love my brother, and so I don't, because I think it becomes easy for a lot of comics to do the here's why, here's my Batman story, here's. Here's the reason I need to go on stage. I don't need to go on stage. I like to. Yeah.
And everyone's like, what the fuck?
Like
you just do this for fun?
Yeah, well, I mean, now I need to because I need to make a living, but at the same time, like, it wasn't like I was like, the world needs to hear this story. Yeah. Like most people, and not every comic who does that kind of game is telling the truth, is my opinion. Like, I remember one time I was at an open mic and this woman got on stage and she was talking about taking Uber X versus Uber Black. And I was like, okay, we have gone to the end of the earth on finding a struggle at this point. And I was like, I couldn't roll my eyes enough. Yeah. And it's like, so I'm very much the very normal, grew up, pretty, in a nice town outside of a suburb. I'm from Needham, Mass. And, a lot of it, like a lot of my childhood stories are kind of looking back and being like, was I delusional? Like those are like a lot of my, like, was I out of my mind? Like, and because I think also that's a lot of people of a certain age. I think like millennials are all in that mindset because the world got bigger without us knowing.
Yeah.
The internet made the world bigger. So it made you aware of a childhood that looks just like yours. So now when you're told you're a special snowflake and then you grow up and you have Instagram stories and you can see that like, oh, there was a lot of special snowflakes.
Yeah.
It's a little depressing. It's a little maddening. It's a little bit like, oh, fuck, what was I thinking all that time? And it's also like you kind of sit there going, man, that was nice that I was kind of didn't know that there was a bigger world. Like, I mean, the thing that we're talking about is like playing football in Massachusetts. Like I played Pop Warner football since I was 8 years old. Like I played my whole life and I loved playing football. Like I like have the most, teachable memories from playing football since I started at 8 years old. But to me, I was like, Massachusetts football. This is where I take it seriously. It's like, no. And then I went to Penn State and they're like, have you heard of Pennsylvania? Have you heard of Texas? Have you heard of Ohio? And you're like, oh shit, it wasn't any good. Like it was just, we don't have very many 5-star recruits that come out of Massachusetts.
You're like, we have a great team where people come in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people come to Massachusetts to play at BC from Pennsylvania. Yeah. So you have that like realization. You're like, oh, that's a little depressing. Like, things weren't as big a deal. But it, that's what makes childhood fun is like to make something a bigger deal than it is. And
absolutely.
To like, and like I remember like I was always the youngest on my Pop Warner teams because I was overweight. So they do it by weights. So I was always heavier. So I would have to play up. So I never played with like my age group. And even staying with playing up, I'd have to like try and lose weight for the weigh-in. Like that was always like a big part of my life. Like the way you had that, there was a first weigh-in of the season and then they'd let you gain a little bit weight during the season. Yeah. But the first one was the hardest to make. So you're like working out for this weigh-in.
How old were you when this was happening? Like how old was this?
8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. Every year, the weigh-in at the end of the summer, leading into the football season. If you weren't under a certain weight, you couldn't play.
Wait, so when
that's my worst nightmare.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So when you were 8, were you like aware that this weigh-in, like, was it in your mind, or were you just like, yeah, football? And then your parents were like, what? There's a weigh-in? Because I feel like
no. The weigh-in
is like on the bulletin board.
Everything. Okay. That is everything. The preseason. You do the whole preseason leading into the weigh-in, which allows you to play for the team. So there's this like thing in the back of your head. You're like, I gotta make this weight.
No shit. Especially at 8 o'clock. At 8 years old. That's fucking crazy to just be thinking about that at that age.
And I was playing with people a year older than me usually. Yeah. Like it was like, I think like it was, it wasn't ages. It was like, it was A squad, B squad, C squad, D squad, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And I don't even know if this is still allowed today because of concussions and all that stuff. But like I played tackle football like from minute one. So like, and I took a couple, A squad was the oldest and D squad was the youngest. So D squad and then C squad, and then you move up with your weight. And that's why you don't see a lot of like, you wouldn't see a lot of big kids play. Yeah. Like they just didn't want to deal with it. Like if you were tall, you were fucked kind of.
Yeah.
So if you were a tall 8-year-old, you'd be stuck with like the 11-year-olds, which doesn't seem right at all.
That's a big gap when you're 8. That's a big age.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's also like, a lot of, women bring up like the pressures to be thin and stuff.
That's what I mean.
I'm not disqualifying that, but I'm saying it does. There is an element for that for guys. Like it does. Like yeah. This existed from 8 years old. Now that I think about it,
that's totally unhealthy. That's a really shitty thing to put on a kid. That's gonna stick with them forever.
Yeah.
I remember getting down to my underwear at the weigh-in and it'd be a big line, and we all looked like we were. Yeah, I'm like having these like flashbacks, but so I always knew like all the football players like. My whole life, like everyone kind of knew each other, like, and it was Needham Wellesley. Needham and Wellesley were put together as one team. So there were Wellesley kids. So I like you get to know these names and people. And I just remember, always playing. And it's one of those things where I go back to like, do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah.
Sure.
Tell any story you want.
So
if you want to talk 20 minutes about weigh-ins, we can do that.
No, but well, let me tell you about the third grade weigh-in. No, I remember when you play, like, it's one of those things I look back on because I'm like, I remember, like, I always played and I always played. Like, for whatever reason, I'm not a very good athlete. I don't think I was ever like a really great athlete. I was always okay, but I was very good at playing defensive line. For whatever reason, I knew I was good at it. Like I knew just kind of how to play. And even though I was overweight, I was always kind of smaller. So I was like more
like compact,
small. Yeah, small and round. Like you wouldn't put me on the defensive line if you looked at everyone, you'd be like, but I played defensive line my whole life, like starting at 8 years old. So so when I went to high school to play football, I knew all the people older. There was a freshman team, JV and varsity. So I knew all the people older than me because I had been playing with them kind of my whole life. And now there's a freshman team and I'm going to play with the freshman team. But I was like, I just knew how to play football because I've been playing for so long. In high school, some freshmen, like a lot of people just start playing in high school. Yeah. Like not a lot of people are those Pop Warner people. So all of a sudden this whole new group of people started playing, but I kind of knew what I was doing. And I was pretty good on the freshman team, whatever. And then you move up sophomore year, you go to the
maybe like JV,
kind of JV varsities like put together. And, it was interesting to me because all these people that I knew my whole life from playing football, they didn't seem to like remember me, like as weirdly as it sounded.
Well, they might have just been like at the time, they might have been like, that's the 8-year-old. You know what I mean? And then to see you in high school, they're like, oh, I don't like who? Andrew, yeah.
I don't know. But that's when I get back to like being delusional. I was like, I don't know if they remember that. Like, I remember like being a part of those Pop Warner teams and being good. Like, I was like, am I out of my mind? Was I good? And then I remember sophomore year, was it sophomore or junior year? Only a few people would dress. And so for JV and varsity football, when you practice together, they have this thing called, they have the scout team. Mm-hmm. So the scout team, the first team would go out. And because I had played so much football from growing up, I knew the scout team is where you get to like make your name. That was where you get to like, and to me, it's similar to comedy because it's like open mic. Yeah. Anyone can go. Anyone can jump up. You can do as many as you want. And that was kind of like the great thing about comedy to me. I was like, oh, I can do all the open mics and get as good as I want without ever having to wait on anybody. Yeah. And I thought about scout teams a lot because I was like, oh, I'll just be the best on scout team and I get to play against the first
string
squad, the first string. So I was like, what better way to show how good I am than to just jump out? Anytime they said scout defense, I'd run, I'd sprint out and I'd be first to be able to get the position I wanted to play. So that's an open mic.
Yeah. So you like wanted to be good at football. Like you were like, I want to be, because I played field hockey because my mom was like, you need to play a sport because it looks good for college. And truly, my girlfriends and I, we had a choice between soccer and field hockey, and then field hockey wore kilts, and we thought those were cute, so that's why I chose field hockey. I was just like, I don't like truly senior year, like you probably have like a memory of like doing something amazing on the field. I was like, well, I organized the whole team getting matching sneakers, and I organized the best slumber parties. I was like, nope, just don't care if I'm good.
I organize the best slumber. I'm a good party planner, and that's what I want people to know from my high school. No, I truly love football, and like I remember getting to like varsity JV, and I was like, how don't they remember me? I'm better at this than everyone. Like I really believe that. Like I'm good. I know I'm good at this one thing. That was like my mindset. Like, and I need to show that. Like I think of it the same way with comedy. I know I'm good at that one thing. I know I'm good. I need to go and do 1,000 open mics. I need to go to every scout team to keep reminding people. And I remember like the best part of like sophomore year, like I played JV, but then I had a few games where I would dress for varsity because there would be so many moments during scout team where I would fuck up the first squad and it was the same thing every time. The coach would go, how do you let this guy? Like it was like, how? Because I'm a smaller defensive lineman. I look kind of ridiculous against a senior as a sophomore. How is this guy fucking us up? Was basically when I knew I really did a good job. Yeah. If I could have one of those a practice or one of those a week, I'm like, man, they can't ignore me. I want to fuck them up.
Yeah, but this is why you're probably like succeeding in comedy, because isn't that like the same as being like, well, you're funny for a woman. They're like, you're good for the squad team, dickwad.
Totally. Well, it would be this big production. Anytime I fucked up the first team, there would be this moment where they go, and Jared Freid is fucking up. What are you going to do against Denham? If Jared Freid, it would be like this big speech. And I'd be like, okay, it's not that bad. It's not like that crazy.
I'm pretty good for this.
I don't know if you noticed.
The people. You know?
I fuck them up all the time. Like, why is this still a surprise?
Why? And Jared Freid, I mean, who could have think? If he fucks us up, we got no chance this week. It was always that type of thing. But I took a lot of pride in that.
I think I would be like, thank you.
So that was my sophomore year. Then junior year, I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to like I dressed a few games as a sophomore for the varsity, but I was playing JV, and then I was like, junior year, I'm coming back. I'm gonna do the same exact thing.
So
and
it's when you dressed, were they like, did they make it a big thing? Like, did the coach pull you into the office and be like, okay, you've been doing good? Like,
no, it's like a list that goes up, and then at the end they'd have the few sophomores that would. And so I was like, and alongside this, I had like 3 really close friends on the football team that we would hang out all the time, and we would fuck around. Yeah. We would do shit that would like, we didn't take it. Like we thought it was hilarious. Like I would sprint out to scout team because that's where you can really make a name for yourself. Yeah. It's like comedy. I always compare comedy to like trying to get into football, because you know the people that go to every open mic, and then you also know the people that talk about going to every show and don't do any open mic. Yeah,
they go to every mic like and do the same 5 minutes. So you're like, well, if you're just going to jog, don't even come out.
Sure, exactly. And it would be like, and it would also be those people that are like, talking about like, did you hear about this show? And they're bullshitting. Yeah. That guy used to exist in high school football, and we used to always make fun of that guy. There would be a guy every game, he'd like take his head and like smash it against a locker, and you're like, and we would be like,
if your football concussion comes from smashing your head against a locker, go fuck yourself.
Like here, exactly. We made fun of that guy. My junior year, like, junior's like kind of like a really great spot to be in football, because you're not the leaders of the team. You can kind of hang out and fuck around, and you can make fun of those idiots. Like there was a guy that used to, whenever we'd have like line up to do drills, there's like there was this guy who was really shitty at football, but he would cut the line because the seniors go at the front, and he would cut the line and be like, senior.
Oh.
And we made fun of him the whole season. Like me and my buddies, every time we'd get in line, we'd get in front of our friend and be like, senior. We just thought it was so funny. Like we had awareness, and it's like the unaware people always make that so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one side story, there was one game that one of my best friends, we were all hanging out, and we used to like hang out in the locker room in this one area and like eat food and fuck around. And while this guy is like smashing and taking it too seriously. And I remember one time my buddy saw some eye black and he goes, oh, give me that eye black. And he went off and he made an eye black beard. And we thought it was the funniest thing because, again, it's against the background of these people who are too intense.
Yeah.
And he has this eye black beard and we're all laughing so hard. And we were like, go to the captain and say something. And we were like, you got to go to the captain. His name was, his nickname was Mully. We're like, go to Mully and go say something. And he's like, okay. And he goes to Mully and he's like, yo, Mully, what time's the bus leaving? The minute he made eye contact with his eye black beard, he's like, get that the fuck off your face. You're going to take this seriously. He was so fucking mad. We were laughing. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. And then we convinced my friend who made the beard thing. The worst thing in the world in high school is having acne, and we told him it gives you acne, and he was like, oh my God, and he starts freaking out. And so this is like, we were dying, but that's kind of how my buddies and I would take football. Like we would have fun with it, but like make fun of all the people taking it too seriously, but take it seriously. We try to find this like nice
like secretly
line.
Take it seriously.
Yeah, like and I was of my friends. I was like so junior year. I started playing more. I started playing a lot, and there was really only like it was a really stacked senior team, but there were only like 4 or 5 of us juniors that played.
Oh wow!
And I was one of those people, and I remember like they had like for D line we had defensive tackles, and there's 2 defensive tackles. And there were like 2 seniors and me that kind of rotated through as the defensive tackles. Sometimes I would start, sometimes I wouldn't. But my friends didn't. Like my one buddy would come to the game with his like lineman gloves, and he'd have Snickers bars in the fingers. Like
yeah.
Like that's kind of so. That was kind of the dynamic, and I'll never forget it. It was the second game of the season, and again, like. Friday Night Lights. We're playing at Framingham. And, you know, you're like, Friday Night Lights. Like, we think this is Texas. Like, we think this is the biggest fucking deal.
Was it a big deal in your school? Like, was football a big deal?
I would assume someone made fun of us. I would assume there was a group of people that thought, look at these fucking idiots thinking this is serious. Because we would wear, like, you know, the cheerleaders would do stuff for us on Fridays.
Yeah.
We'd wear our jerseys to school. We'd wear the jackets. We'd wear ties sometimes. Yeah, we did all that stuff. So, right? So I don't know what, I was friends with the people that were, like, into it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'm sure there was someone at another table who had the ability to, maybe not, maybe I'm like a cynical, you know, old guy now, but maybe I would assume there's some group of people like, look at how fucking stupid this all is. And I'm sure that person exists. But to me, I was like, this is the best. This is why, like, to me, I'm like, I'm a junior playing. Like, I'm killing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I'm playing with a lot of the guys I grew up playing with. And that I was like, and so we go to Framingham. We're playing at Framingham. It's the beginning of the game, and I'm playing right defensive tackle. So the offense is coming towards me. I'm on the right side, at the far side of the field, the right side. The quarterback snaps the ball. He rolls out to his left. I see him rolling out. I start. In my mind, I was like, if he runs it, I can catch him at the line. So I'll start running towards the sideline. And he goes back to throw, and he tries to throw it over my head. And I reach up, I grab the ball, I bring it down, I hug it, and I run Like I had it all on video. I look ridiculous. I'm not a great runner. And I rumble, stumble, and I run like 17 yards for a touchdown.
Wow.
And this is like as a D lineman's dream. I've been playing my whole life. I never scored a touchdown. I'm getting chills talking about it because it was such a big deal to me. And I have it on video, but I do the biggest white man's fist pump. It's like the nerdiest fist pump. That's how you know professional athletes are such good athletes. The ability to score a touchdown that you didn't plan on scoring and then dance?
Yeah.
To have a choreo.
Yeah.
I legitimately went like a big fist pump that looked so fucking dumb. And then I immediately run to the sidelines. I run off the field. It's over. It's over. I run and I jump on everybody and it's like the biggest moment. And my parents were there. That was nice. And but to me, I was my first touchdown, I was like, man, so many years going into this. To me, I was like, yeah, I should be scoring a touchdown. This is something I've dreamt about. But at the same time, I was like, I wasn't surprised. I was like, this is what I've always thought could happen maybe one day.
Yeah.
And again, I can't, thinking back, I'll never forget it. And so we end up winning. So we go to halftime up 7-0. So we're winning by my touchdown.
Yeah, okay.
When I first got off the field, I told you about my buddies who never took it seriously. They looked at me and I go, and I'm jumping on everyone. They're like, did you see Mully's touchdown? And I was like, what? They started saying it was someone else. And I'm like, you fucking piece of shit. This is the biggest moment of my life. They're like, no, we saw. Did you see Mully's touchdown? It wasn't, that other guy scored. And I'm like, you fucking piece of shit. You better give me this. Okay. So that happens right as I get off the field.
They got a nice reality check.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, you pieces of shit. So then we go to the locker room at halftime. There were these, there were these two twins that played on the team. And I remember walking into the locker room and I'm getting high fives and mostly high fives from people who didn't play. I'm getting it from all the juniors that know me. And I remember walking into the locker room thinking and one of the coaches was my fan. I knew he was on my, pumped about it for me. And I remember these twins that played on the team, their dad had coached me for years. And I remember I have one specific memory of them being doing the thing that the coaches would do when I was a sophomore. Can you believe, of all people, Jared Freid scores a touchdown?
Oh.
What? In what world does that piece of shit score? And I remember hearing this being I've been playing with you since I've been 8 years old. You don't remember? I've been... What do you think? I just wasn't there?
And also, I'm here right now. My ears work.
Yeah. So I always have this thing, and I have it with my body, too. I have it with my comedy. I have it with my body. I have, people, overweight people think I'm in shape. In shape people don't think I'm in shape. Yeah. Will call me fat. Good athletes will think I'm a piece of garbage. Yeah. The bad athletes are like, good. Jared's pretty good. Comedy, I have a lot of people that are that'll be like, wow, I loved your special. Then I'm like, oh, thanks, man. And then we'll hear nothing from people that I'm like, I hope that guy liked it. This is a running theme of my life. And I'm I think about this moment all the time because we ended up winning 14-7 and that was, it was for me. I have the video. I thought it was
and you're that mattered. If you didn't have that,
even the banquet. I remember they show on the highlight video from the season, and I remember the two guys that were talking shit, just being like, Jared, can you believe that happened? I still can't believe it. It's start believing it, dude. I played the whole fucking season. Believe it. And
wait, were they seniors by any chance? Were they older?
They were seniors. They were a year older.
Were they not playing?
But I've been playing.
Yeah, exactly. Were they?
They were very good. They were very good.
They're just dicks.
Their dad was a coach.
They're just really great leaders of lifting you up.
We never I never, Needham is kind of a weird town from when I grew up there because, Needham is it's not like a new town. Now it has this now people think of Needham as like a she ritzy town. And when I grew up there, it was turning into that, but it wasn't that. It was Needham has like a very huge history of like hockey. Like there's a hockey like tradition there. And with St. Sebastian's as well. But I was kind of coming in as like these new neighborhoods are sprouting out. And so there's this little bit of a divide of people moving to the town and people who have been there 100 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You have that a lot of Boston suburbs.
Yes.
And you can feel it. And I kind of felt it with football. Cause it went from the team, I remember it was like my buddy and I with the two Jewish last names. And it's and then everyone else is like O'Sullivan, O'Brien, McMurphy, Murphy, and that was felt. But again, I don't want to get into my Jewish struggle. I'm not saying it was a hard thing.
Listen,
I'm just saying.
I didn't think that I grew up I just kind of grew up like any white lady. And then I was like, well, actually, my coaches used to refuse to pronounce my last name because they said Arroyo was too hard. Truly, one coach was just like, we're just going to call her Yo-Yo. And the whole team called me Yo-Yo. Yeah.
That's the same amount of syllables, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm literally just do that, but put an A in front of it. And you're so close.
Yeah. This takes half a second to learn. And if you can't, you have bigger issues in the world. Yeah. I'm not saying it was a problem, but it was just now looking at the divide was a little bit there. And I do so after the game, when my friends wouldn't give me credit, I started referring to myself as TD Freid as a joke. And I gave myself the nickname TD Freid, and my friends hated it because they were like, you didn't score. Their whole joke was that I wasn't me. And then a year goes by. It's our senior year. And you know how there's that one teacher you can joke around with?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had this one math teacher that I could really kind of joke around with. And I had him, and I, joke around with enough to call myself TD Freid to him. And he would call me TD Freid. He'd be like, what TD? What do you got? So it was it was funny. It was, it was in good fun. And then my friends had him a different period than me. And they told me that the minute they lost was when my name came up, and the teacher goes, oh, you mean TD? And they were like, got us. That was how I got them back for not giving me the touchdown. But that's pretty much the story. Yeah. And
do you watch it every year, the video?
I had it and then I lost it. So I've watched it 1,000 times. Sure. I worked at a summer camp and I showed it to the campers.
I was just going to ask you how many girlfriends have seen this video.
I've told this story. I told it pretty spot on here, but I can really stretch this thing out into an hour story of me shimmying. If I can really be physical with it, when I talk about him throwing the ball, I said, behind me somewhere, I could feel the receiver. I wasn't sure what it was, but I kept him in my back pocket. I can really play this story up if I'm, acknowledging how stupid it is.
It's becoming a one-man show.
You can
that
see
would
it
be
in
actually, that's a great idea. How funny would it be?
You really should do it because
a one-man show all about my one touchdown.
Yes, how many jokes are there about people, not stage jokes, there's a life joke of people peaking in high school football. And this is your shining
of all
moment.
Peaks. My touchdown moment. Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic idea. I would need legitimately a month
Yes.
And like actually just do it, because there's jokes in just like the high school, how you look at things versus how they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I don't
weigh-ins you had to go through for this. Like, I think also
I'll never get them talking about me afterwards. Like, and how shocked I was that they didn't realize like that they didn't see me as part of their football lives. Like I was like, I've been with you every year. Like it was crazy.
Well, honestly, you told that story and I was going to make a joke and be like, oh, were they like, can you believe Jared Freid?
No,
but then
that's
they
what
went
happened.
up to me and they actually said it.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable memory. And like, I'm a little embarrassed to tell because like, I always do wonder what they would say to this story, like how they would tell this story, like or like how other people, because I do think like, we have our mind's eye, like there's like three sides to every story. There's like your side, my side, and the truth.
Yeah.
So it's like, I do wonder. And I think like I wonder like how far away was I from the truth? Like, I know I scored that touchdown. I know I was at all those, and I used to come to like football practices straight from Hebrew school and like wear my pads to Hebrew school to like get picked up midway through to go play football. And I remember like doing so much, and I took a year off from football at Pop Warner because it was just so much. I like couldn't do it anymore. And I just like wonder, I'm like, I don't know. I think about that a lot. I'm like, how is that viewed versus how I saw it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, I think sometimes we, like, the reality is they probably were just like, what happened? Like,
yeah. No, nobody cares about you more than you.
Sometimes, like, the most dramatic moment in your life, people are like, you were at that dance, and you're like, at that dance? Like, are you just
having a dance of my life?
Well, that's being a kid. It's like, that's like, I don't know how kids are today, like, because the world is bigger, like, if you're on TikTok, like, you see kids around the world. So, like, how could you think that your school dance matters at all? Maybe they still do. Maybe that delusion's still there. I hope it is, because it's like, there's something nice about it.
Yeah. I remember, like, I think if you're a kid who is allowed to be a kid, like, you get that tunnel vision, right? Like, your world is the only world, and like and you're aware that there's additional things and people out there, but like your sport, your project, your whatever is like life or death, because that's what you can do. Like, you're 16 years old, that's what you're allowed to do in this world right now, is like your sports and your homework. So everything is like intensity a million. But also,
I think it's probably worse now because you have your world, which we know, Laura and I especially know, talking to people, like, the stupidest things feel like the biggest things when you're younger. But now, like, imagine if, like, you walked into that locker room and you felt shitty, right? When those guys were just saying that, even though they were like joking, you still feel a little bit shitty. Now, imagine seeing that on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or Snapchat. You know what I mean? Like, you'd be like, what fucking shit? Now that joke is being shared with like other people. So like all the shame and attention that you give yourself is like.
I guess I would be more shamed if I guess that's very true. Like, if I came home and saw a tweet from one of them being like, you won't fucking believe what happened, it would hurt more, because it's like, who else is seeing this? Who agreed with this?
Exactly.
Who liked it? Who responded to it? When it happens in real time, because I have like a faint memory of this happening in real time. To me, it was like, I guess like to me, the big difference is like, you're always the star of your own movie.
Yeah.
But in this instance, it was the one moment where you're like, I'm definitely the star of this moment.
Yeah.
And when at this moment, when I'm the star, this is how people really feel. And you're like, oh,
it's not all great.
Good to know.
Yeah. We've talked a bunch about how, like, when we were of those ages, like, thank God, kind of, because it was like the max you could do was get on instant messenger, which still felt like it could ruin your life, but you could, the computer probably wasn't in your bedroom. You had to go to bed. At some point it was like whatever to get online took an effort. And then it was like, not everybody had a cell phone. So it was like, the bullshit could be turned off after a certain point. Then it would start again in the morning, but like now there's just unfettered 24-hour access that I'm like so grateful I am not 14 years old right now.
I mean, we even feel it now. Like I think with the pandemic, like how many times do you get up in the middle of the night and you just look at Twitter and you're like, a little piece of you is like, I hope there's nothing bad here.
Yeah.
Like I like a little piece of you goes, like you're looking at the reactions going, okay, good. It's just likes.
Yeah.
It's just one person saying, oh, that was funny. Like, I think we're like that now where it's like, I just hope nobody like is so like, I've never made anything to make someone mad. Right. Like I've never, and I think that's the assumption of comics now because of like roast me and like just like the nature of online stuff. Where it's like you're evil till proven not, but it's like, when someone reacts to something that I made, going, how could you do that? Like I put up a post about how the other day I put up something about how Himalayan sea salt. We all just went along with it when it came out. No one, and now you want to research the vaccine. And that's less about, like, to me, and I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah.
To me, when I say you were cool with Himalayan sea salt, and now you want to do your own research, I'm making fun of someone for saying they're going to do their own research. If you don't want to take the vaccine, that's a different, like, go ahead. I mean, like, I really don't know what to say to you. We disagree. But that's not what I'm making fun of the idea that you feel you have to lie to me to say you're going to do your own research, because I know you're not. No one's doing their own research.
No, like, what like research are people doing? Like, when people say that, I'm like, what, are you going to wait for, like, a Netflix documentary about it in 5 years and then watch it and then decide? Like, I don't know what you're doing.
Go to the lab.
It's like 4 seconds. So you're, like, going to Google something wrong anyway, and then the results will come up and you'll be like, nah, and you'll get on your phone. You're not researching anything.
You're not researching. So when people were responding specifically, because it's like a hot topic, I guess. It's like but when they were responding angrily in the comments about I'm not taking the vaccine, I felt bad. Like I even felt bad. I was like, man, you missed the joke.
Yeah, I'm not. But that's them feeling bad, and you still have to do gymnastics in your mind to get to that point where you can be like, that's not me. That's them feeling called out, and they feel guilty, which means maybe they don't feel as good about their decision because if I see someone making fun of something that I've decided about, I'm like, that's funny. I already decided that I'm comfortable with my choice. If I'm not comfortable, I'm like, wait, what are they saying? Like, what?
Absolutely. And I just can't imagine that being your high school reality.
No.
Like, I even feel it now. Like, even yesterday, I put up something about charcuterie, and I'm making fun of a charcuterie board, and someone's like, it's not that serious, man. I'm like,
why?
Like, I know it's not. I'm making fun of charcuterie. How do you think I feel this way? And it's like, like, how did you think I took it seriously? Like, and now it's like, I know you are, but what am I? And it's like, and
we're both yelling about cheese.
Exactly. So like, that even makes me feel bad. So like, when I see, thinking back to the story of like seeing those people be like, Jared Freid scored a touchdown. Can you believe it? I never thought about seeing it as a tweet where I'd be like, that would live with me. Like, I'd be like, I mean, this has kind of lived with me now that I'm thinking about it now.
You're like, wait a minute.
No, that would live with me more?
That would live with me and become a one-man show.
You can see me in Edinburgh.
Probably once a year, my mom will be like, can I throw your yearbooks out? I'm like, 100% not. absolutely not. And she's like, well, do you want them? I'm like, no, they live at your house. Like, they're my memories. I need you to hold on to them for me. I'll get them at some point.
I need this house to matter to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think for us growing up, we had like our version of Twitter was we had burn books or slam books, we would call them, where you would literally make pages. It was just a notebook, and you would write someone's name at the top of each page, and people would just write their anonymous comments about you in the book. And I remember, like, it's an insult not to make it into the book. Like, I didn't even matter enough to get, like, if someone didn't make it in, you'd be like, oh, sorry, I wish someone said you were ugly too.
Well,
At least
this
they'd
is
be
the
talking
land
about me.
This is the land of, like, when I saw that movie Mean Girls, I was like, man, the female world is just so much more complicated, like,
It's a nightmare.
than the male world. I just it's never more apparent that, like, I like watching The Bachelor, and Bachelor Nation is mostly women, and the things that, like, the 90-sided die, die of how people can be upset or emotionally involved is, like, wild to me. Like, I'm like, and it's like that, like, a burn book is an example of that, where it's like, am I in it?
Yeah.
What did people say?
Yeah.
Do people care enough to say something about me? My page is blank. Oh my God, I'm not even talked about. Yeah, there's a lot to that I can't. It's tough for me to understand, and yeah, it's
I mean, like, even your football story, I was gonna ask you if your friends got jealous, because we had a pretty tight female friendship, and it was time to try out for JV, and that was where you were either going to stay in the remedial thing or go to JV. And one of our girlfriends' dad, like, hired her a coach, like a professional coach, to help her be good, and she was already, like, more athletic, and I was just like, my legs touch, like, I don't run fast, you know, like, I was just like, yeah, no. And so I made the team and she didn't. And I was like, what? Because I'm like, yeah, I'm strong, but, like, I'm not in any way, like, I was just like, no. And she didn't make it, and it caused a rift in our, like, group of friends that this one girl didn't make it, and she had tried so hard. So, like, even though really, like, how does that affect her in any way? But it did cause, like, a rift. And then the next year she came back, like, so hard. And I was like, still not trying.
Yeah, that's a tough thing with sports, is because, like, again, she has, like, a part of that's, like, her and her dad's thing.
Exactly.
You know? Like,
yeah.
You know, like, that's not, I don't know if the people are jealous. I don't think so. I think that whole thing about, like, scout team, like, there was no, like, I really believed in that kind of process of, like, well, I go show them every day.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can say about that. It's just like, he's performing every day and he does well. So what can you say?
But that's why I love, you know, like, I actually thought about it a lot when I started doing comedy. Like, that whole thing with, like, open mics, like, yeah, like, well, who goes to the most mics? You know, like, it's like, and you know, that doesn't mean they're the best comic. That just means, but you can't take away the work, you know, like, you can't really, like, talk down on, like, okay, well, they are getting better. Like, you're just going to naturally get better. That's just the reality. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there were people like, oh, why is he getting all this? Like, I remember there were points where people would try to beat me to the scout team because they knew that I would want. So I think there's a little jealousy in that, but I long play, I was never going to, like, miss out on that. Like,
yeah,
sure. And I'm sure to some extent, like, most teenagers aren't their most secure, you know, that they'll ever be in their life. So you add your own self-comparison on top of whatever else, and it's just it's a cocktail for.
Oh, absolutely.
That was crazy. So, Jared, where can people find you?
Oh, at
Besides
Jared Freid on Instagram.
At Jared Freid
on the fields. at Jared Freid on Instagram is where I put pretty much everything. I'm on Twitter, JTrain56. I'm on TikTok, Wizard of Haas. And then I got a special out. So if you want to, I got a special called Socially Distanced, of course. And it's on YouTube. And it's 35 minutes of material that's only about 2020. So that was, I taped it on New Year's Eve. So it's taped on the last day of the worst year. And it's all material about that year. And really, it's about the social anxieties that everyone was going through. It doesn't matter how rich, poor, wherever you lived, you were worried about, putting up a picture with you without a mask and telling a friend that you're looking to go out tonight and maybe hang out and going to see family when maybe someone could say something badly about it, and wearing the mask and people who don't want to wear the mask. It's all about that stuff. And I think it's highly relatable for anyone that wants to just laugh at shit.
Saw you working it out. And then I watched it, and it was cool to see the material develop into like this very cohesive, like clean, like well thought out set. And I will say all of us have been writing jokes about COVID, obviously, but it was refreshing to see a take where a lot of us have taken that COVID material and turned it inward as far as like, how did it affect me specifically? So it was refreshing to see someone be like, actually, I just am looking at how the world is reacting to it and how people are reacting to it. So you like manage to still be observational without just being like, I'm depressed and I got chonky or whatever. Like, cause that's what we all did. Like all of us, like I literally just asked Laura the other day, I'm like, did anyone make this depression joke yet? Cause I now feel like someone had to.
I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I've only been working on my own. So
yeah. Literally, she was like, I'm working on this depression joke, but yours is different.
Well, yeah, I think we're all going through very similar emotions, and no, I appreciate that. And it's also like, yeah, we're all going through similar stuff, but like, I think the audience is also like a lot of people, and I think the most people are genuinely just trying to be good and respectful, and I think that gets lost, and that's really. The tough part about the special is like it's not like I'm like doing a right wing, comedy special, because that's what gets heard. Yeah. And I'm not doing a woke comedy special about how we all have to stay the fuck home. I'm talking about from a very human place of like, yeah, we're all kind of trying to like make a living while also not killing people.
It was perfectly, like, it was funny and then not preachy in either direction, which was that means a lot. Just kiss. Like, good.
Yeah, that's not it. Preach is not, I have nothing to preach about. So thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
So we will, we'll put the link to that in the show notes so you guys can hear it. We'll put it up on our Instagram and stuff so you guys will be seeing it. And then, as always, just like and subscribe to Pinky Promise. Give us those reviews. Keep them coming. We love reading them. When in between sending our depression bits to each other, we like to say, look at these cool words people wrote about.
That's right.
So keep that up and give Jared a follow because he's super fucking hilarious. And that special was really good. And it was really fun to watch something not about depression for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.